All right, let's get to the getting. How have you been? What's been up since the last time we spoke? What was the previous series we did?
Well, Star
Right?
Wars was Mandalorian season three.
Right.
We chatted last about Secret
That's right.
Invasion,
That's right. That's right. The
which can just
other,
stay a secret that no one needs to see.
that's cold, but that's a good point. Good point. Yeah, man. So we are here already, and it's funny how that goes. Once again, one of those situations where we are talking about something that's coming up, and it's 8 months from now, next year, blah blah blah. Then you wake up
Today,
today, today.
well, actually, last night they moved up the release window.
Oh, really?
Apparently, I don't know. Apparently, some people were like, "Why are you releasing it at like effing midnight or whatever?" Which, fair. So they actually released it Tuesday night instead of Wednesday, super early Wednesday morning,
Oh,
and it was like 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock, whichever one it is. But it was a reasonable time, so I actually caught the first episode last night, and
oh
then
wow.
watched the other one today, the second one.
Okay, I was wondering how you got through them both so quickly. You hit me up and said
Yeah,
it's good to go. I'm like, wait a minute, what? And I'm like, I haven't even started yet. I'm just now kind of getting settled in and trying to pull it together. So, okay, that makes sense then. I don't understand why people complain about that. Like, what does it matter when it comes out as long as you can watch it? You can watch it early if you want to. You got some people who can't sleep. Like, I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I might just be like, I know this next hour is going to be me just looking at the ceiling or listening to YouTube videos or whatever. Why not just pop it in and watch it? Why would I be mad at that? The whole issue was before we had standard slot times like 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock or 9:30 on a Tuesday and all this other kind of crap. Now we
the
can watch whenever we want.
I think my guess, because I didn't see any of the specific complaints, but my guess would be if you release it super early in the morning
Hmm.
and you got to get all the way through your day without
Oh,
any social media spoilers.
okay.
I don't know if that's the reason. That'd just be my guess.
That sounds reasonable because I know when I start kind of seeing stuff pop up, I'm like, here we go. Here goes the landmines, and it's
Hmm.
always one or two people who's gonna be messy and throw it in the thumbnail, some spoiler or some kind of like I don't
This
know.
changes everything.
Right, right. The etiquette is kind of gone from it, so it's very interesting
I
how
saw some of
folks
those
do.
videos today,
Oh, serious?
but I'd already been like, I've already seen that part.
Okay. Okay. I stayed away from it all, even after watching it. I finished watching not too long ago, no more than 30 minutes ago, and I haven't watched anything on it. I'm probably watch some stuff after our conversation, actually, which I often do. I try to wait. You know what? It seems like we're already getting into this, so
Let's do the countdown.
do the countdown. All right, so you good to go?
I'm good to go.
All right. Five, four, three, two. Hey, it's Jay back in for another one, and tonight I have with me.
Padawan nerd Ryan.
How you doing, brother?
I am doing good. I think I actually had enough sleep last night, so that's a nice change.
You know what? I think I did too, and I don't know how to feel about it. I guess I just don't want to mess it up.
Yeah, such is the joys of having a toddler. So,
That'll do it. That'll do it. Hey, man, it's good to have you back. Good to see you. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Okay, I will start by saying this. We're talking about Ahsoka. Disney Plus dropped the first two episodes. The first one being The Master and the Apprentice, which was directed by Dave Filoni, and
hmm
then the second one was called Toil and Trouble, which is like a witch brewing kind of,
yeah,
kind of thing. And the word witch came up a couple of times.
yes,
Um,
she's from Dathomir.
okay, and that one was directed by Seth Green.
Like, I just noticed that it wasn't Dave Filoni because I was like, oh, he
Okay,
wrote it. He did all three across the board. They did a good
yeah,
job.
yeah. Okay, this is gonna be an interesting conversation only
Mm.
because I think it's going to be okay. I feel like this is the hybrid of two things we love. Andor, it has the kind of behind the scenes and depth and kind of intrigue and storytelling drawn out, similar to Andor, but
Hmm.
then it has the heart of the Mandalorian, where it's still a little light, it's still a little fun without being as heavy as it could be. And I feel like this is a good marriage between those two shows.
I would agree with that assessment, and I think the picture you picked for your background, where Ahsoka's at the industrial center on oh, I'm gonna get names right, not Coruscant. It's where Han Solo's from. I can okay, I'm gonna forget names. Corellia. Ha.
I knew
Um,
you'd do it.
but it's the whole thing they're investigating, like I forget how they freaking got there. There was quite a bit of like investigations going on in
Yes.
these two episodes. But when they get there, they're like, "Hey, oh, right, so and so, the I forget her the character's name, but the magistrate from the Mandalorian season 2 when Ahsoka shows up. She used to own stuff on Corellia. We're gonna go investigate those industrial sites, right?"
Hmm.
And it's this whole thing of like secret imperial loyalists
Yeah.
are running some dirty operations there. Yeah, I think you're right in that it's a mix of sort of like on the ground, a little bit nitty gritty,
Hmm.
definitely a little bit more,
Under the hood.
a little under the hood. There's definitely a little bit of suspense, right? It's less just sort of seat of the pants Western and more
Right.
like, oh, there's governments, there's corporations, there's organizations, like
Politics.
there's politics. Like the fact that in that scene, Hera, who's a general now, is pulling the I'm a general. Like, you want this to be a formal inspection, or would you do
Right.
the informal? And then it's like, oh, this thing is classified. It's like, again, look at my general rank. Like, I have every clearance. Like, oh, well, da, 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 da. Like, so there's a little bit more of gamesmanship, and I think writing wise,
Hmm.
it's pretty solid.
Yes.
I would
I agree.
say, like, going to the first episode, I was kind of impressed how that sort of temple site scene with Ahsoka, where she's
Yeah.
walking up on this abandoned ruins and she's like inspecting a sigil on the ground and then cuts her way in, and there's this, I don't want to say tomb, but it's a puzzle room,
Yep.
clearly, right?
Hmm. Right.
And we get to see her actually thinking her way through this puzzle room. And, you know, with all sorts of like screen puzzle rooms that can never be too complicated,
Right.
right? But like there's a whole bunch that happens without any dialogue.
Right.
And
Right.
it's only when like the droids show up and then she's on the comms to Huyin. I can never pronounce the name right, but the lightsaber droid
Yeah.
in the ship, like there's a whole bunch that happens without talking, but you can still follow it.
Yeah.
And holding on shots, holding
Yeah.
on emotional beats,
Yep.
like they're not in a rush,
No.
but things don't drag.
Exactly. That's why it reminded me of Andor, because it seemed like it was taking its time. Because when I thought about like the summary of the first two episodes, I'm like, it wasn't really a lot going on. It was pretty much kind of like find the map, find the person, pull the team together, let's figure out the puzzle.
Hmm.
Like they could have been so much further in the second episode, but decided to take their time and give us a little minute to catch up with the characters where they are now. For those who are not familiar with them, to kind of get an idea of who they are and
Right.
how they attach to each other and their relationships. So I like how the way they're using their time. Like I said, it's familiar to me, and the fact that I feel that I'm getting enough from the way they're doing it, I really appreciate it.
Yeah. I think because there's tons of fans that have watched all of Rebels and they've watched all the stuff that Ahsoka's been in with Rebels and Clone Wars, blah 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 blah, and they know who these characters are. But there's a bunch of people that haven't watched all of it or haven't watched any of it. I've watched some of it, but not all of it.
Same.
So getting the status quo slash introduction to Sabine, who
Mhm.
she is for this story, who Hera is going to be for this story, and then
Right.
setting up all the relationships and laying that groundwork.
Yeah.
Like I think it worked fairly well. The only thing that I don't think this was bad writing or bad storytelling, but where they're setting up Sabine, and in a way they're setting up where it's like she's clearly like a hero of
Hmm.
Lothal, right? They're having that big ceremony. Was
Hmm.
it Clancy Brown? I forgot that Clancy Brown, he voiced that character in Rebels.
Oh,
And they made in Rebels, they made him look like Clancy Brown. So it's just like a no-brainer that they cast him.
that's
But
dope. That's dope.
it was interesting for them to like, oh, here's a message from, Sabine Wren, da 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 da, then she's not here. And it's like,
Yeah.
if they'd done the whole like the shy hero, the hero that doesn't want the spotlight,
Right.
okay, cool. Okay, you're gonna do that as part of her character, that's fine. But her whole like, I'm leaving the town on a speeder bike. Oh, they want you to come back. I'm not coming back. All right, well, we're gonna land one of these E-wings on the highway.
Hmm.
That'll stop her. And then she does the sort of daredevil slide underneath,
Right.
which is great character work, but it's also like that's really irresponsible for someone who's supposed to be a commander. Like it's
Right.
it's the tiniest of I don't fault anyone for it, but it's like, come on. You're an adult. I get it. It's a little bit of like, yeah, but I go to my own drum beat, right? I'm gonna do what I
Yeah.
want.
Okay. Okay. One, it was
If I was a
dope.
teenager, I'd be like, fuck yeah,
Right. 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 Like it
give it to the
was.
man.
Yeah. It was. It was. It was dope, but then it's also kind of like almost like you said, reckless and kind of silly. And okay, so it's funny. The point I was going to bring up later, but I'll bring it up now because this kind of touches on it too. With that scene, which I thought was dope, is after she did that, and the guy was trying to pull her over, and he like saw that she did that,
He was just
and he
like, fair enough,
kind of checked her like, oh, okay, and then she gave him a head like a nod, like, okay, like if you pull it like this, I'm gonna let you go.
right?
You can have it. Like,
Not worth
okay,
the
you're not
smoke. Not
right,
worth the
right. You're not
smoke.
coming back. You're not coming back. You done did too much, and so I love that acknowledgement. But I will say, especially the second episode, when I was watching it, I was thinking like, man, this reminds me of new Star Trek or Star Trek, the new movies
With Chris
with Chris
Pine.
Pine,
Okay.
with
The
then
Kelvin timeline.
exactly. So the same thing with the bike thing, with him starting off young as a kid, and he steals the
Mhm.
car, and he's doing his thing, and the cops trying to pull over, and he's being defiant. So they borrowed a few things so far from some of the new Star Trek stuff, and just also the relationships. It just the vibe of this feels more like Star Trek to me than Star Wars a little bit,
Hmm.
in certain kind of ways, as far as like the relationships, and then because like always it's always kind of been like, not to say Star Wars wasn't, but the politics and all that kind of stuff, that was always kind of to me more of Star Trek, because it was like they had less action going on. It was always kind of like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, like that was their thing. They didn't have the big battles and all the other kind of stuff, like a
Because there was a
phaser
lot of
thing, or
politics, diplomacy,
exactly,
right?
like action would be Captain Kirk without his shirt on doing some karate moves, some bad karate moves. You know what I mean? But it was never really like grand battles and stuff. And so this kind of, and this is not an insult at all, but
Mhm.
it's just funny how the newer Star Trek is a little bit grittier, and this new Star Wars is trying to kind of step up a little bit and be a little bit more mature. And so they're kind of crossing streams a little bit. And that's fine. I'm not knocking it, but to me it feels like, if this was a Star Trek show, I wouldn't be thrown off. I'm like, oh.
Right. Well, the other interesting thing too about this is like, we've got investigation and then investigation and
Mhm.
puzzle and all these sort of things. But I also don't think it's presented in any way where it's like, if I was 10, I'd be able to follow everything.
Yes, very much
Right?
so.
You,
Very
you
much so.
don't have to know a super level of detail. They're laying everything out that you
Yep.
sort of need to know, right? As I was watching again this scene where they're investigating the industrial center,
Mhm.
like part of me was like, why don't they just go look up the records? Why don't they
Right.
just go look up the records? Why are they going through these intermediaries? And I had to remember later, I was like, oh, because watching someone go through records is boring.
Right.
Like
Right.
this cuts right to it.
Right.
Right, and you have the droid be the one to like, oh well, actually, I did see someone, and like gives away the whole game,
Yeah.
right, and then that kicks off all the action.
Yeah, because even the way they introduced Ahsoka when she before she went to the quote unquote like tomb, it was
Mm.
definitely an Indiana Jones moment, but she did with lightsabers and the Force and the way she even
Hmm.
cut through it and fell through the hole and
And then
everything,
cut back up.
back up and all that kind of stuff. Like they made something as simple, but they put so much flair on it that it personalized it and it made it kind of like exciting. And so I and I think that kind of lends to the story being, kind of basic, but then also have these flourishes to make it feel like a full meal. So I appreciate the vibe of this show for sure. And like I said, same thing with this, with the speeder bike kind of situation. It was just a little bit more nuance to the situation. With this, usually it's like the bad boy kind of attitude, but I guess it's like the bad girl thing that's just, too cool to stand in line with everybody else. I gotta do my own thing. I gotta think in my little clubhouse.
She's a Mandalorian. She's stubborn.
Right,
Yeah.
which I thought was pretty cool. They brought up, and I also thought it was pretty dope that they showed the mural with the more of the animated style characters,
Hmm.
and it's kind of like if you ain't for sure who's who, they're lining them up to say this is that character, this is that character, and I think that was pretty
Well,
cool.
that was the interesting thing because that is taken directly from the very end of the Rebel show.
Wow.
Like not just that mural, but Sabine
Yeah.
dressed in her Mandalorian armor, turning
Mhm.
around and Ahsoka being there.
Yeah.
The only difference was that Ahsoka was dressed differently. She was all in white and she had a
Okay.
staff, right? So
Okay.
they retconned that a little bit, but it was very interesting to see. Let's build up to that moment and then
Mm.
take the show directly from there.
Yeah. Also, I thought it was pretty dope with the intro, featuring Ray Stevenson. I thought it was really dope because it reminded me of, it was almost like a call to the Dark Vader in the hallway scene
Mm-hmm.
where he just going down the line, tearing everything up, force choking,
Right.
tearing people up. It was just like,
Well, the other cool thing about that too is also this is the first time in a while that we've had an opening crawl,
yes.
right? And it was
Yeah.
in red, which
Yeah.
I
That was
don't
different.
I think that's different. I don't think they've done a different color before. It was also just a straight up crawl as
Hmm.
opposed to like
It
going
wasn't
away
tilted
from
back.
camera.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't tilted back. And it
Yeah.
was the crawl itself was good because it just like, here's what you need to know.
Yeah.
Boom, solid crawl. And then it's like, yeah, we're no Jedi. Just start cutting through
Yeah.
that poor ship.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think they're doing a good job with Balin and Shin, his
Mhm.
apprentice, with their characterization seems very consistent. It's very interesting watching his apprentice Shin when they're in a scene together and just how much she's taking cues from him
I
and
love that.
how like she's looking for guidance. She's not necessarily sure what's going on, how to play things. She doesn't necessarily look like out of her element,
Right.
but she's definitely like, I'm gonna take my orders from you.
Right.
Like
Because
you're
even
the
when the
experienced one.
Right, because even when the boss is telling him what to do, and she's looking at him like, "So what do you say, master?"
Right?
Regardless, and he has various levels of explaining or not explaining, or just kind of telling her the next place to go. And I've known this before with Star Wars, but really in these episodes, that it's just amazing how many little cut scenes there are. Like they'll show a scene just to make one statement, and then it goes to the next thing. It's so comic book panel-ish. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? I'm not knocking it, but it's just funny how often that happens. So I was thinking about this today, and I just wanted an orange to eat. Insane. Swipe. Today is
Well,
Tuesday, and I wanted an apple. I decided to make a pie out of it, like my mom used to make back in the day. Insane. Swipe.
the interesting is there's not any actual fat on it. Like
No.
there wasn't any scenes like where they weren't serving a direct purpose, where they weren't setting up information, where they weren't moving the plot, where they weren't
Right.
exploring a character dynamic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it didn't feel indulgent. I appreciated that when, because the whole thing is Ahsoka gets the orb, which is the map, but she can't open it, and She has
Right.
to take it to Sabine, and
Of
Hera's
course.
like, "You should go and check with Sabine, your apprentice that you two don't seem to get along with anymore. She'll crack the map."
Right.
And in at least the map cracking with Sabine,
Hmm.
it's clearly not one scene.
Right.
Like she lays out all her stuff and then it sort of cuts away. I don't know if there's a scene in between or not, but it's clearly like hours later and you can see her little hollow thing has totally changed. She got
Hmm.
tons of like it took her time.
Right.
And just that little bit of like storytelling I appreciate because sometimes when you're trying to show someone that's really smart, if you can't have the audience go all the way through the alphabet steps to
Hmm.
show that,
Right.
at least show that the character had to put in a lot of work to figure out the thing,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Make them earn it.
Right? Make it feel like it was earned.
Right.
Um, the other interesting going to Ahsoka and Sabine's sort of tense, tense isn't even the right word. Awkward? Awkward. Let's go with awkward.
Okay.
I was kind of reminded because we did watch Secret Invasion, which no one else should have to go and watch. But one thing that we didn't like was Samuel Jackson, like what he had to do with Nick Fury, and Nick Fury
Right.
coming off as sort of depressed and just and not communicating.
Right.
And the interesting thing is you have on the surface level similar sort of thing of there is some unspoken frustration issue that relationship as master and apprentice did not work out.
Hmm.
And I think it worked. It worked
Yeah, it did.
a lot better. They also didn't spend multiple episodes not patching it up.
Right.
And I don't know, I saw some people saying that other people didn't like that. What was it? Ahsoka Rosario Dawson was just so stoic, right?
Yeah.
That she's sitting on her emotions, so to speak, right? That she's,
Mhm.
you know, she's a Jedi for God fucking sakes.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing is they need to be stoic so they don't give in to their emotions, right?
Right. When we seen her on what you call it? When we seen her in was it Mandalorian?
Mandalorian and Book of Boba
Yeah.
Fett.
Yeah, she was a little bit lighter on those, but I think the situation was a little bit different. I think this
Mm-hmm.
one they told you it could mean war, and then you're dealing with somebody that you didn't end on the best terms with. So it was a lot of stuff that she was going into, and so her being the way she was and kind of being reserved and kind of like just taking it in the way she needed to take it in seemed like it fit for that situation. Because I did notice the stoicism in her, but then when I thought about the scale of everything and how important everything is. And I don't think it was really the time for the fun loving, lighter kind of, it wasn't that
Mm-hmm.
kind of a situation, especially not in the beginning with so much at stake and not knowing how the pieces were going to fall.
Right. And the thing is you can read the subtext very clearly that
Right.
she's got urgent, gotta stop the war business,
Hmm.
but also I have this relationship that failed essentially,
Right.
that she's frustrated in part with herself, we find
Right.
out, and frustrated with her apprentice being, an apprentice.
Right.
Like I thought they did a really good job. Like she has that whole thing of like Ahsoka is talking about how she ran away from the Jedi,
Yeah.
right? And then she ran away from her apprentice.
Yeah. Because Anakin is brought up. And unlike Nick Fury, he wasn't bouncing it off with his quote unquote wife. Like
Mm-hmm.
he never had that conversation off of nobody. So it just seemed like, what's the problem then, dude? Like, so
Right.
it's no internal dialogue coming out for us to grab onto or to give us insight of the situation. It's all in his head.
Right.
And so it just looked like he's getting punched and not hitting back. And so that's what made it so frustrating. But here it's nuanced very well. It was very tight. It was the way stuff was unveiled and presented was really nice. I really appreciated how it was done. And like you said, it was a correct way, I feel, to do that sort of a thing without it just making, oh, she has an attitude problem or she's messed up or whatever. You never feel that. You kind of see where she's coming from and you see that it's limitations to what she feels that she can give. And then also, if I'm putting myself out, what's going to be the reaction what would her reaction be to me if I straight out asked her. So I thought it was pretty cool too how the droid was kind of noodling in between. He was almost kind of
Mm-hmm.
like the parent figure, kind of like, you two get together. Now I can't make you get together, but she could use your help here. And then why didn't she ask? Well, did you seem like you needed to or wanted to come back? All that little
Right.
in between stuff that we're thinking as a viewer. He's thinking as a guardian person who wants the family to be back together all right, and then the two kids that want to make up but don't know the way to get there.
Right.
So it's nicely
It,
done.
it is funny to frame the droid as like the parental figure with
Yeah.
like the older sibling and
Yeah.
then the younger
Hmm.
sibling, right?
Hmm.
Especially when you realize that droid is hundreds of years old.
Sure.
Like he's literally seen thousands of Jedi
Right.
uh, as they get into when they're talking about the lightsabers. I'm trying to remember if it was him or it was Ahsoka that had the line of like, Apprentice has to be ready, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
that's the thing. One of them says it to Sabine, and
Right.
that's what gets her to what I thought was a great scene, and it's alluded to in the trailer, right? Gets her armor out, puts her armor on,
Yeah.
she takes the knife, and it's clearly like this is a ceremony of I am making myself ready. I'm cutting the hair off,
Right.
right?
Right.
Um, it's very interesting because like I don't think they put like a big underscore over what was the thing that was making her not ready, right?
Right.
They didn't go and say, well, this is why I wasn't da 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 da. Right? I think they allude to some things of like focusing too much on the past and you can't move forward,
Mm.
right? And I think that's just her. For context, the place that she's hiding out at,
Yeah.
that's Ezra's house. The
Okay.
one that's gone missing, the one that she has the hollow recording of. So she's stuck there,
I didn't realize that. Okay.
right?
That makes sense.
So it adds some more weight to it when you realize that she's sort of stuck.
Right. But it was interesting too, Ahsoka, as much as she knew it was important to figure out the map and get it
Mhm.
open, it was interesting how she brought him up. If you don't care about anything else,
Right.
care about us possibly finding him as well.
Right. She definitely dangled that intentionally in front of her
Yeah.
because she would know that that was important to her.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it worked really well. It's going to sort of the hero's journey, which is a crock of shit, and I've come to despise it. But one of the
Dang.
things, well, shit, was it Joseph Campbell had a lot of fucking issues. Let's put it that way. Just leave it at that. A
Okay.
lot of fucking issues. But classically in the hero's journey, there's part of the process which is the hero rejects the call,
Right.
right? And the thing is, we don't quite have that here. And this is the problem with like over relying on the hero's journey, is that there's lots of other stories and story beats, and you don't have to do the whole thing.
Mhm.
But Sabine, if anything, she has that lightsaber dual shin. She gets injured and she's kind of sidelined. And she doesn't have a rejecting the call moment. If anything, it's getting her shit together moment, right?
Right.
It's, I'm going to move past this. I'm going to put my armor on, right? So, yeah, I
So
thought they did that very well.
So what do you think of this recent surviving of the piercing of with a lightsaber and still living? It seems like that's been kind of a thing lately. We seen that before, right?
Oh,
not too
oh,
not
right.
too long ago.
What was her name? Raya,
Yeah.
in the Obi-Wan show, the
Yes.
Inquisitor.
Yes.
It's
you know. Hmm.
not the
Yeah.
worst thing in the world.
No,
Like,
but have we seen this before?
I
Before
mean,
them?
before them,
Yes.
uh,
I'm just putting it out
only in the
there.
Disney era, I think, because I think pretty much anyone you see get run through with a
Yeah,
lightsaber
they're gone.
in the Lucas era, they're pretty much toast.
Right.
And there's also like, where did they get stabbed? Like people got arms cut off. Anakin got arms cut off. Like people can survive shit. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, it's one of those things of just like, how fast was medical care given? Like
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
There's the difference between, and again, as someone who noodles over the how the fucking technology actually goddamn works in Star Wars, which is fucking insane. But there's what is the story beat,
Yeah.
right? And the story beat is she took the map, she cracked the map,
Right.
and then of course because she did that without staying near Ahsoka,
Mm-hmm.
Shin and the droids show up, fights the droids, Shin takes it, and then Shin runs her through,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Tries to fight her with Ezra's modified lightsaber, her lightsaber, and
Didn't
gets
work
run
out.
through.
Right. Right.
I'm not super upset about it. Like, oh, she survived. Good. You could have more story stuff. Like, bent through the chest instead of the abdomen.
Yeah.
It's not the worst thing in the world. Like, and they took her out of commission for half the episode, right? Because she's in the medical suite. Like,
Right.
I'm not losing any sleep over it. People get run through with regular swords. Okay, but let's be honest, they probably die too. But
Right.
it's
I hear you. I hear you.
it's not the worst thing in the world for me.
It's not. It's not. I just
And
want to see this. I just want to see this. Living through these kind of injuries to continue for everybody.
equal opportunity surviving.
Right.
Well, and the other thing is, I didn't get the impression that Shin was necessarily like, I'm gonna make sure you're dead.
Yeah, I noticed that too, and I was kind of wondering why, but I'm sure they'll unveil that
She
later
wanted to
on.
get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, you're done. Bye.
But she didn't seem like she was really fighting with malice, which I thought was interesting. Because usually somebody's fighting, they're fighting with a grudge, and they're trying to take somebody out. And it seemed like she was almost kind of like testing to see where, I don't know if it was skill set or what, but it just seemed like it wasn't, I don't know, it didn't seem personal, or it didn't seem, I don't know.
It's not for Shin. She doesn't
Yeah.
fucking care about this random person. I'm just here to steal that thing.
Yeah,
Right?
so it's almost like, I don't know if it was like her dying was optional or what, but she didn't seem like she was too troubled by it, like you said.
Well, and
She's
again,
like,
her order wasn't to kill Sabine. Her order was to get the map.
right,
Right? Stab. I'm out of here. Cool.
yeah. But I will say that all the fight scenes are really dope. All the lightsaber scenes were dope. Rosario, you could tell that she's been practicing. You could tell she got her skills up, which I was glad to see. The fights, felt more natural. The makeup was impeccable, because sometimes you could look kind of like, crazy with the makeup face and the contacts and all that kind of stuff. She
everything looked
really
pretty
good. Yeah, I was really
I
impressed.
appreciate that most of her dual wielding lightsaber fighting wasn't reversed grip. Most of it. As someone who does actual sword fighting, reverse grip is horrible. Yeah, no, the fight scenes were good. I had to turn my brain off once or twice when they did spinny things, but
yeah. But Rosario, she did good. Like I said, I was concerned when I seen her before, because I remember that stood out to me. The makeup was kind of like, and then which they tweaked and did some adjustments, and it looks great. And then, like I said, the fight scenes and stuff, and it really felt like she took it up a level. So I thought that was really good, and it really lent to the storytelling, especially when it's based off on a fighter or something like that, and that's your thing. You're supposed to be about. It really makes a difference for you to sell that, even more so than the acting. You kind of want the physical part to be on point. It says so much with it.
I remember it for the industrial fight. It's where she's squaring off against the other Inquisitor, the guy all in black.
Yeah, the lightsaber ninja.
Right. And they're squaring off, and she took the deepest horse stance. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I noticed that.
Kung Fu Ryan sees you. That's a hard stance to fight from, but like it's a hard stance to just pull off, period. But yeah, I think none of the combat was like really distracting. right?
Yeah.
There's bits where I had to turn my brain off, but it looked competent, right?
Hmm.
Maybe one of the moves or something to be like, no one would do that, but who gives a shit? Like, it's lightsaber combat.
Yeah.
But the actors and their stunt doubles looked like they knew what they were doing. So yay that.
Yeah. 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 I'm looking forward to this season. Like I said, I think this is a great start. Yeah, I think it's a great start. And like I said, story was solid. The action was solid. The pacing was solid. The characters were solid. And like I said, once again, they got so many characters coming through, but then they're all kind of nuanced and you kind of remember them for certain things, even when they're familiar faces. So it's a world that's not just there for wallpaper. Like it feels lived in. The characters feel real. Even if they're there for a moment, you kind of like, I'll remember that story, or I'll remember that face, or something like that. It's just like they're not just characters like say walking in circles and stuff. I really like that about the show. And like I said, that's the thing I loved about Andor as well. And it feels like it's like I said, I think they took some notes from that because it really feels like, even though it's small, it feels big. It feels like I said, like a real place. And I think that's what makes Star Wars really cool. Like the cantina, you've seen all the characters and you've seen them for a quick second, but everybody got their little personality or something about them. It feels like that kind of thing when you have these characters like that. So yeah.
Well, you want some world building shenanigans. Now we've set up that there is an entire other galaxy.
Yeah.
That Thrawn and Ezra got pulled to. So when they when Balin and Shin and the Magistrate, the witch, they go to that cliffside and there's the monoliths and they put the map up and the whole like holographic display kicks in. That was pretty fucking cool. And they have sort of the moving icon that lines up with that other galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see what was ringed around it? There was like, I wouldn't say hieroglyphs, but like iconography around it.
What was it?
So you remember season 3 of Mandalorian when they're traveling in hyperspace?
Yeah.
And those giant squid whales?
Whale things? Yeah.
Yeah. Those icons are the squid whales.
Oh,
right?
Okay. That's dope.
And so at the end of that scene, like she leaves, he like talks with the Shin, his apprentice, and then sends her off on the mission. Mm-hmm. And there's this lingering shot on him and he looks up and you see the sky through the clouds, and just for a split second they cut away back to his face. You can see the shadow of one of them moving through the atmosphere.
Right.
So it's like clearly they're on the planet that is the jumping off point. Like, so presumably, though I can't remember what they're called, but the space whales, they have made that jump back and forth between this galaxy and the other one, right? And so the bad guys are trying to build that giant ring ship with hyperdrives that's going to make the jump. So they're going to take advantage of, I don't know, some weird technobabble bullshit, right? That'll allow them to make the jump from one galaxy to the next. So it'll be interesting. I mean, we know the bad guys get there,
right? Because
from the bridge of that ship and the layout and the way it looks, it's like, oh, well, we've seen Thrawn in the trailer on that ship. So that's clearly how they get there. Then the question becomes, how did the good guys get there, assuming they get there? Well, probably some space whale shenanigans.
That'd be a good tie-in for sure. All right. So what are you looking forward to in the next episode as well as this season?
Well, the interesting thing in the way that they've structured this is like the first 2 episodes, it sets all this table stakes, right? We know what the bad guys are doing. Awesome. We know all sort of the good guy character relationships. We get a sense of the bad guy character relationships.
Yes.
We have no idea what Mr. Inquisitor is up to. No face. Again, please don't be Ezra. That'd be so annoying, but it's like, why does he have a mask then? It's always one of those things where it's like, either they're a fucking nobody, which means they should be a stormtrooper, right? Right? Or, surprise, surprise, it's so-and-so, right?
Yeah.
So part of me is just like, don't be that. Just be someone we know, but just don't be Ezra.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever it is. But they haven't set up the next lead, right? So like
True.
through these 2 episodes, Ahsoka's following a trail of I need to get this up. Now I need to do this. I got to talk to Sabine. Sabine needs to do this. We're going to go, okay, we're going to go and check out the magistrate's holdings on Corellia. Okay, that leads us to this. And oh, now we got a tracking device. And probably the tracking device is the next thing.
Yes. Yep.
So, but I don't know what that's going to entail. Like,
Okay.
it's interesting that they've set up the next plot path to follow,
Mhm.
but it seems like we're gonna still have to see Sabine and Ahsoka and maybe Hera figure out their dynamic a little bit, right?
Right.
Just because Padawan now doesn't mean it's all gonna be easy. Like whatever their old problems were, probably gonna come up again.
True.
But there's not necessarily like direct animosity between our good guys and the
Right.
bad guys. It's just bad guys have their bad thing they want to do.
Right.
Good guys want to stop them, but it's not like, oh, and I know so and so and I hate you, right?
Right. It's more like a football game. Like the team just trying to get their
Yeah.
ball to their side of the field. That's all. They got the same goal, but it's just the opposite of what you got.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting because I know from the trailer eventually Ahsoka, Tano, and Balin have a fight at the map place, right? The where all the monoliths are. And that's going to be interesting because clearly he knows who she is and he knows who her master was.
Yeah.
Maybe doesn't know that he became Vader,
Right.
but he knows that Anakin was her master. So that'll be an interesting fight. But they've, aside from that, there's not much of the rest of the game that they've given away, and I don't even know how many episodes are in this. I haven't gone on IMDb yet.
I think it's 8 episodes. I think in total.
It is 8.
Okay.
So yeah, they still got plenty of runway.
Yeah. Plenty.
Still got plenty of runway,
Right. Right.
and it'll be interesting to see too. Like, there's quite a bit of action, I would say. So Ahsoka fights the droids at the
Mhm.
temple.
Right.
I'm trying to remember where that episode ends. Does that end with Sabine's fight? I think it ends with Sabine's fight. Right?
Mhm.
So there's 2 fights in there. There's pretty much the industrial whole shebang in the second episode, and that there's a lightsaber fight there.
Yep.
And then there's Hera chasing down the escaping transport with the hyperdrive.
Yep.
We get introduced to Chopper.
Yep.
If people, I don't know, if some people like, oh, it needs to just there's not enough action, like
Are you
watch a fucking
serious?
different show. Yeah,
You're right.
dude,
This is-
I think there's some people. I think there's some people that genuinely hold that opinion, and there's also some people that just like they want to generate controversy,
Yeah.
right? They want to get hate likes or hate retweets or whatever the fuck Elon Musk is fucking calling it now. So I don't know, but like as far as like how much action's in the mix, if this stays on par and escalates towards the end a little bit, cool beans.
Yeah.
If we get the same sort of like, I would say, quality storytelling and character development, I'll be happy. I don't know where it's gonna go.
Yeah.
Probably to another galaxy. But I don't have any specific guesses.
Okay. Okay. I'm just looking forward to more of the same. I'm digging what they're doing so far. I'm looking forward to new characters coming through. I'm looking forward to seeing some familiar surprises. The action is on point to me. I like the style of it. Like I say, I think this is a good idea of what we have to look forward to. And like I said, if it's gonna be more of this, then I'm down for that. I'm down for that.
Yeah, I think if they took it up a few more notches and this was the quality that we get for whatever their eventual sort of capstone movie is for this era that they've been talking about, I'm gonna be like, okay, we'll see how the rest of the season goes.
Yeah.
But like the look of it, the feel of it, I would say even the tone of it, like, yeah. Let's not be disappointed.
Positivity. All right. So I guess that kind of wraps up our discussion for the first 2 episodes. What was it? So part 1 was what? The Master and the Apprentice.
Apprentice.
Right. And then episode 2 was Toil and Trouble. All right, so that was Jay and Ryan. Until next time, peace.
In another galaxy. I watched too much Clone Wars. They always did those intros like that. Last time on Clone Wars.
Okay.